Hi, and welcome to Paratalk One-on-One. I'm your host, Hazel Evans, and today our guest is Sarah Ferguson. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Today we're going to be talking about Sarah's experiences with the WHPS team on some of the investigations that she has gone on with us as a guest investigator. And we always ask that, they give us feedback and stuff, but I want to know about your personal experiences that I might have missed, during these investigations, because we don't always get to investigate together.
Right.
So it's always kind of cool to hear the stories from your point of view. Can you just first give us some of the places that you've been to with us? Do you remember the?
I remember every single one.
Oh, okay.
My very first experience with the WHPS team was at a public investigation that I was allowed to go on, and it was Yorktown. And I was so excited to be there because, Yorktown, there's a lot of hype. And I felt like the energy was just so intense.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my very first time with y'all. I was very nervous, but I think that everybody on your team really put me at ease because everyone has such a great rapport and everyone has such a great sense of humor. And I do remember every time I've ever been with y'all, we've had so much fun, laughs, and it was good. But Yorktown will always have a special place in my heart. And I've been with you guys several times to go to Yorktown. So it's an interesting place.
Now let me ask you something before we get into your experience at Yorktown. As you can see, we're getting some feedback here.
Is that on my end?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
I can hear myself talking. I wanted to know, what is it that got you interested in the paranormal to begin with, Sarah?
Well, I've always been around it. My mother was always a believer. My grandmother was a believer, and I've always been exposed to it. My mother had the gift. She could read auras, but she was raised in a Catholic convent, and she never really wanted to talk about it. It was only later in life when she would talk to me about those experiences. But I had some really prophetic dreams very early in my life where dead relatives would visit me and they would speak to me and they would tell me things like my aunt told me where some money was in her house that even her children didn't know about. My cousin came to visit me after he died and played a joke on me in my dream, and I never knew this about him. And I called his mother and I was like, Tommy came to me in this dream and this is what he said. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is a recent development in his life, shortly before he died. And you guys, we weren't very close in the end. And I would have never known that. I did not know that. And so it became apparent to me that there was something else out there. And so then I began to be more and more interested. And then I didn't really know what else to do with that except just wonder and read and think. And then when Shannon and I have been friends for a very long time. And so Shannon was like, I met this team, and I'm like, oh, please. And then the opportunity, the opportunity presented itself, and then the rest is history. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's really cool. That's honest. I think that every time I hear a story about how people, what it was that piqued their interest in the paranormal, those experiences to me are really important, because it kind of sets the vibe for what it is that you're searching for. Why you want to do this, why you want to go on these hunts. So, okay, let's go back to Yorktown now.
Well, actually, if I could go back just a moment, I had another very interesting dream. And this was a really interesting dream for me. My cat ran away and the neighbors were moving in and out, and their doors were open. And my cat was gone for like days on end, and I couldn't find him and I didn't know where he was. I was very upset. And in a dream, he came to me and he was at the glass patio door, clawing on the patio door. And because he was behind the patio, all I could see was I couldn't hear him. And I woke up from that dream and it was like 3:30 in the morning and I could not wait for the apartment manager to come in. And I called them and I said, listen, my cat is in that apartment next to me. I know he is. And she opened the door and let me in and he came running down the stairs. So my cat really, he came to me. I believe that he came to me in a dream, basically, help me, woman. And so I dreamt that he was next door and he really was next door. And, you know, I mean, you can say what you want about it, coincidence or whatnot. I believe that he came to me in my dream so that I would know where he was. So I have a lot of dream things, but I always think that when my cat came to me was a really big moment in my life because it really did kind of seal my desire, not desire. It really sealed for me that there is something more happening in our world, you know.
Right. Right.
So I just wanted to share that. That's one of my favorite.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really is, because we talk all the time about, you know, how animals, to many of us, that's our family. It's not just a pet. That's our family. And for a pet to be that close to you and to be able to guide you to where it's at or give you a message like that, that's a beautiful thing. I love that story. That's a great story.
Thank you. I just wanted to share that with you. But back to Yorktown. So whenever we went to Yorktown, the very first thing we did, and the first rotation that I went on was with you and some other of the people that were there, because it was a public investigation. I didn't know all of them. And we went to the chapel and we were upstairs first. And there was activity down below. And we spent some time upstairs and then we went downstairs into the downstairs part of the chapel. And that room back in the back corner on the opposite side of the pulpit, there was so much activity coming from that room. And I wanted to go back there and I wanted to open that door and walk through there. But I was very self-conscious because I just didn't know what protocol would be. It was really my first investigation. And so, but boy, I did want to get back there, but I did find a lot of energy in the chapel area. I felt like it felt not bad, but not good either. It was just there because churches represent, especially a chapel in a hospital, represents a lot of turmoil. People are praying for their loved ones. And so you could definitely feel it there. And I love that chapel. Every time I go back, I always want to get back in there and investigate. But there was a lot of activity coming from that room to the right that's right across from the pulpit.
Right. And that area, it's questionable because we had gone there sometimes where it was actually very negative feeling. And then other times it had a more sad, like grief, like you're just picking up on all that grief, you know, from people passing possibly. I mean, I don't know, or just maybe it's just the prayers that people would, you know, ask for help. So yeah, when we were on public investigations, it was always hard to be able to just say, okay, yeah, go ahead, go over there and see what's going on.
I know.
Because we just never knew what the outcome was going to be.
Right.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
Some more Yorktown.
So, well, you know, in case the viewers are wondering, I do have notes because there's so much. I didn't want to forget some really amazing things that have happened to me with your team. I didn't want to forget those because, you know, after the fact, I'll be laying in bed and I'll be like, no, I should have told him about that. So I did make notes, but, let's see, I talked about that. So the kitchen, we had an amazing experience in the kitchen. And ironically enough, there's a little room in the back of that kitchen too. I don't know where it leads. I didn't go back there, but even Shannon was like, I am hearing so much coming from that room off the kitchen. But I had a really neat experience in that kitchen with the flashlight experiment. Mm-hmm. And I know it's been debunked, or, you know, everybody likes to talk about the physics of it. But this was undeniable that Shannon was like, if there's someone here, turn off the flashlight on the right, and it would turn off. And if there's, okay, well, can you turn on the left one? And the left one would come on. And, so having two of them there was really interesting, and you could just feel the energy in the room. It was just so buzzy. That's the way I describe how I feel when I feel that energy. It's just very buzzy. It's just, bzzz, kind of buzzy. But I felt like there was a lot of activity in the kitchen. We got some Ovilus hits. We had some EVPs, and there was just a lot of racket. And there's so much to move around in that kitchen, all the cooking utensils and a lot of the metal things. It was really, really exciting. And there's that jail cell cage that's kind of just in there. I guess it was like from Halloween or something.
Yeah.
That thing, I could feel there was something in there, something inside that little jail cell thing that they had put in there. And I sat in there for a while, and I could just kind of feel it swirling around me. It was just a really neat experience. And I wasn't afraid, but you could feel the energy moving through there. And I love the kitchen. I love the chapel, and I love the kitchen.
Those are great. Those are great areas. We actually got a lot of stuff over the years in those areas because we used to frequent Yorktown. I mean, that was like the place to go at one time. And Shannon always had experiences in the kitchen area. It didn't matter if we got anything anywhere else. It was like, send Shannon to the kitchen. We know we're going to get something there.
Yes.
So that was one of those really cool hot spots.
Yes, it was. So yes, the flashlight experiment. And when I hear people, in interviews, and I read articles on the internet about debunking the flashlight experiment, I still can't put out of my mind how that worked that night. It was quite some time too. I would say several minutes of on command, turning those lights on and off as Shannon commanded it. And I can't explain it. I can't explain it, but it was great. So the basement of Yorktown. The basement of Yorktown is amazing. And there's that area that's the meeting of the two halls, the four corners area. That area was and Billy, I was down there at one time with Billy, and Billy was like, I'm moving. Because our backs were exposed. When you're in that four corners area, your back is exposed. And I will never forget how it made me feel for Billy to say, yeah, I'm going to scooch over here up against the wall. And I was like, wow. But you could feel it down there. It was really intense down there.
Right. And that was another area that was always super popular for a good reason. It had its moments, and if you were one of those lucky people, you were down there at the right place, right time, you got all kinds of stuff
that's where you guys got the ball rolling there.
Right. Yes,
and
we did.
I could watch that clip forever. I love that clip. It's an amazing piece of evidence. Amazing.
Thank you.
So I was down there at one point again on another time when we were there, because it wasn't a public investigation. I was just there with you guys, and I was down there with Dog and Joan, and we were just sitting there, just hanging out, and there was a growl in one of those rooms off to the right, and all three of us heard it. But we couldn't get in there because there was so much stuff in there. Some of those rooms have so much stuff in them, you can't get in there. And I got to tell you, that was one of the most creepiest things, because we couldn't get in there to see what was in there.
Right.
So we just had to sit there and investigate after knowing that all three of us heard that growl, and Joan's like, how long is Hazel going to make us stay down here? I'm like, I don't know. Dog, go look in that room. And we couldn't get in there because there was just too much stuff in there. But we all three heard it from the same room. And that was actually very amazing. That's the only growl I've ever heard was at Yorktown.
Right. Now, let me explain to the viewers, when it comes to investigating with our team, whether you're a guest or not, or just a regular team member, we always place people together, in different areas, but we let everybody investigate with everybody else at one point or another. We try to do that to see who is getting more activity. Are the sensitives that are together getting more, or are the ones that aren't sensitives, getting more? And especially when we bring in new people, we always like to see, is this guest got, because, it's fear, I think, that is a big reason why we get stuff when we do. And so I personally have never really seen you fearful, except for one time. And it wasn't at Yorktown. So we'll get to that in a minute.
I do have that in my notes.
But how do you feel personally about the way we do things, about that? Changing up people, investigating with different people.
Oh, I loved it because I know I was really excited to investigate with Wayne because I like his energy, and I was excited to investigate with all of y'all. But I like how you moved me around. I was with Wayne for a while. I've been with you. I've been with Billy. I've been with Dog and Joan. Of course, Shannon and I. And so I really like that because y'all, everyone on your team has such a unique gift and a unique perspective on investigating. And I love it. And so I remember being really excited to be paired with Wayne for that one rotation. And we were up there. I think we were on the 3rd floor, whatever floor is the infectious control. And that was very interesting because we kept hearing so many noises. We were chasing noises all the way down that hall, and we could never identify anything, but there was a lot of noises. And I remember Wayne was saying how ironic it was that it was infection control. But yeah. I don't know if that was Yoakum. I can't remember if that was Yoakum or Yorktown, so I can't remember.
I honestly, that sounds like Yoakum, possibly more so than Yorktown, because Yorktown was the nuns' quarters were on the 2nd floor.
Okay.
Or
yeah,
but 2nd floor.
I don't remember. I don't know. I mean, I've been with y'all a lot, and I'm grateful for that. But sometimes they do mesh together, especially Yorktown and Yoakum, because I've been there multiple times with y'all. So it's like Waverly is pretty set in my mind because I've only been there once with y'all, but I've been several times to Yorktown and several times to Yoakum with y'all. So I'm like, which time was that? So I'm not sure about which time. I just remember, but no, I did that. I like investigating with Billy because I think he has a great vibe. The only person I really haven't investigated with is Ducky. And I think some of the times when I've been there, he hasn't been there. And I know he didn't go to Waverly with us. Yeah.
Right. That's true. That's true. And also, it's the way that everybody, like you said, everybody has their own style. And like, I might hear something and be like, I'm not going to go chasing that, where someone else will. So that's exciting for you because you may want to go, where I'm more pulled back because I'm sensitive and I'm always fearful of what's on the other end.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought all that up, and I'm really glad that you like doing that when it comes to us. Okay, let's move on with the stories.
So there's a funny story. Can I tell a funny story?
Okay, go for it.
So I'm sure you remember in the basement of Yorktown, the baby powder incident.
I don't.
So, the claims are that when you're in the basement and you're in the Four Corners area, that when you look down that hall, that there's a shadow man that walks from the left to the right, and he goes from one room to the other, and there's a window in that door down there, and you can see him block out the light and then move on. And so y'all had gone down there and sprinkled baby powder to, as an experiment. And the reason I know it was y'all is because I was down there with another team on a rotation, and we're like, oh my God, look at all these footprints in the baby powder. But there was two. There was like tennis shoes and there was like some other shoes. It was two. And so we're all like, so there's two ghosts that walk through here, and look, they have nice tennis shoes. And you had sprinkled the baby powder as an experiment, but then the team prior to us didn't know it was even there. They were just walking through there, and investigating that area where the claim is, and they never looked down. But then I think you told our team, oh yeah, there's baby powder down there at the end. And so we go down there with our flashlights, and there's all these footprints in the baby powder. The baby powder incident, yes. But I want to share that I never would have thought of that. And I said to myself after all of that, and we had a nice laugh about that, that is brilliant. And I since have used baby powder on several occasions because, as you know, we have a little poltergeist activity here. And I've used baby powder to actually put around the items that he likes to move to see if they've moved. So because of you, I now look at baby powder. In fact, I tote baby powder on all my investigations now because you never know, but that's thanks to you.
Awesome. That's an awesome tip to give people who've never investigated or who have and just haven't thought about it. And I don't remember that incident. I'm wondering if that was Yoakum, though, not Yorktown. Because I remember collaborating with another team in Yoakum, but not at Yorktown.
No, I say another team, like another team of whips on rotation. No, I'm pretty sure it was Yoakum because the claim is the shadow guy moves across the hall. Yeah, that's what I said,
Yoakum.
Oh, see, those two hospitals, I always get them confused. I could have sworn that was Yorktown, but I trust you. You guys there so much. So the baby powder incident was Yoakum. Well, it's still funny. It's still funny. But thanks to you, I used. Now, our poltergeist very rarely will move the same thing twice. So the baby powder thing doesn't really work for us as we're trying to catch him in the act because he will move different things. And the baby powder thing worked only one time. There is one time where I used the baby powder in the house and something was moved and you could see the scrape marks of it moved in the baby powder. But since it doesn't really work because he doesn't move the same thing twice. So, but anyway, we do use baby powder from time to time in investigations. So those are pretty much my stories about Yorktown. I just didn't want to take up too much. I didn't want it to be like a 2-hour-long interview. So, but I do have a lot of fond memories of Yorktown. And I think that if I could just add, I think it's a downright shame that it's in the condition that it's in because, the last time we were there, it was in such bad shape. And that place is so full of energy and stories. And I love that place, but it's really, there were times when I was fearful, not of any spirits, but because I thought some ceiling tiles were going to fall on my head. I think that's a real shame.
Yeah. Yeah, we did too. I believe the very last time we went was the first time that I actually worried about wearing a mask to breathe because of the amount of water that had collected in Yorktown after the flooding. It was just not in the best of shape, especially for people with health conditions. I was like, this is not someplace that I would look at going back to anytime soon.
And that's just, I think that's so unfortunate.
It is just because of the amount of the activity that was there, that was present, that we all had, whether it be residual or intelligent. It was there. We all know it. And some of our best EVPs and videos came from Yorktown.
Yeah.
So I remember an incident at at Yoakum where we were on the second floor and we had just finished the experiment. Oh gosh, what is it called? The Gansfeld.
Yes.
Blindfolded.
Yes.
We were creeped out by the experiment itself. Then we began to come downstairs, and as we came downstairs, we heard a growl. And that was the first time you almost ran me over.
I have that in my notes. Yeah, it was behind me. I never really heard the growl, but I could feel I could feel that presence behind me. And you were down at the bottom, and I'm like, it's behind me, Hazel. Remember that?
If we ever had a Scooby-Doo episode, that would be it, because it was hilarious afterwards thinking about it.
Yes.
That was so much fun. And it happens where you'll go hours and hours and hours with absolutely nothing happening, and then all of a sudden you have some kind of reaction like that, because you just don't expect it after it being so quiet.
Right.
So
right.
Do you have any stories for us from Yoakum that you haven't already shared?
Yes. So Yoakum, I thought, was very interesting. Oh, look, before we go any further, I just want to add that cemetery that's right, like we met at that, when we did that public investigation at Yorktown, we met at that big cemetery.
Right.
Oh my God, I want to go back and get into that cemetery. That cemetery looks beautiful and very old, just exactly right up my alley. And I want to get back up there, that cemetery. I remember telling Shannon, do we have time for me to go through the cemetery? Shannon's like, no. I'm like, come on, Shannon. Anyway, Yoakum. So Yoakum is a great place too, and I loved that energy a lot. I really felt a little bit darker. I did feel a presence of some darkness, and to me, it felt like the nuns. It felt like if you're going to be a trapped soul on this earth, the worst thing it could be, I think, would be a nun's, because as a nun, they pray and they believe in heaven. They believe in what they believe in. And for a nun to be trapped here, and I did feel that of the two, I feel like Yoakum was a little darker for me. It felt a little darker. But Yoakum was my very first experience being left alone. Thanks, Rhodey. She actually left me alone on the second floor. And she asked me, she didn't just trick me. She asked me, I need to go downstairs. I'll be back in about 5 or 7 minutes. Are you going to be okay? And I said yes, because I wanted to push myself and I wanted to see, okay, I'm up here alone. And I guess is that the nursery on the second floor of Yoakum?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. Because that's where I encountered the paper shuffling. And there were no papers on that desk, but I distinctly heard papers shuffling. And I remember pushing myself because I was alone, and I got up and I walked around with my flashlight, and I walked kind of down the hall, and I thought, well, I need to keep myself moving because it's going to help me calm myself down. But that was a great experience because I know what I heard. And she, you know what? She went downstairs because the voice recorder batteries were dead, and she went downstairs to get batteries. So I didn't have any way to document that. I was up there with no equipment except my flashlight, but I heard papers shuffling at that nurse's desk. And that was the neatest thing. I'll never forget the sound of that. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, really? Yeah. So that was really neat. But that was my first experience being left alone. And it was very interesting. I was very proud of myself and happy to see Rhodey's flashlight come up the halls. So the nuns' quarters. The reason why I think it felt really dark was the nuns' quarters felt really dark to me, and that is where Shannon had the experience where the couch moved with her sitting on it, and that was really
okay. That's Yorktown.
No, was it? My notes are wrong. So that was Yorktown where the couch moved.
Yes. Yeah.
That was intense. That was one of the most intense experiences. I thought that we were in Yoakum, but that was one of the most intense experiences where the couch moved. And I've never seen my sister Shannon move so fast, but there was nothing there, nothing there. And we turned the couch over. We thought it was a creature. We thought it was an animal, like a raccoon. And Shannon's like, I'm not getting anywhere near there because it's a raccoon. But there was no tears in the fabric of the couch where a raccoon might have gotten in there. Mm-hmm. The couch was like on the floor. So how? But that was a really neat experience. And I'll never forget that. So that was Yorktown. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem.
It was still a cool experience. I do know for a fact, because I called Shannon to confirm, the shadow that she chased on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all, I think the whole entire team was up there for that. But Shannon did confirm that it was Yorktown, that it was Yoakum. And it was Yoakum. And she chased that shadow on the ceiling, and then she chased it back. And it was really neat, because when she and it would come this way, I couldn't really see it because we were in such shadow. And so I got up out of that chair and I walked down to the other end, and then I watched her. Shannon and the shadow came up the hall, and I was like, cool. And then I walked down to the other end and I waited for Shannon and the shadow to walk. I mean, it was just really neat. I will never forget what that made me feel like, to see that shadow move along the wall right underneath Shannon. No flashlight, no nothing. That was amazing. And I know you remember that because everybody was there.
Yeah, everybody was. That's when we had the public event, and everybody was lined up against the walls, and they were all watching that. Yeah. And a lot of people freaked out. There were some that were just like, but I know my daughter-in-law was on that one, and she saw it, and I think that one freaked her out as well. So
yeah, that was a really neat experience. Dog and I were in the ER area, and it was not caught on camera, but both of us heard a really loud bang, like the door slamming. And that was really interesting. And I could smell Lysol. And I don't think if I remember correctly, I don't think he smelt it, but I said, dog, I smell Lysol. And it was very strong. It just wafted into my area, and then it was gone. And I know what Lysol smells like, and I was amazed. I thought that was really an interesting experience, that I smelled Lysol like that. And when's the last time Lysol's been in that hospital? You know?
I remember there have been a few occasions in different locations that are older like that, where you don't expect to smell that clean scent, but it has popped up in the middle of an investigation, and we're all just like, where did that come from? And it's really quick, and then it just goes away. And it really is a cool experience to have.
Yes, I'll never forget that, because I know none of us had Lysol, and I know that hospital is so old, it's not like people would be in there with Lysol. So that was really neat. And the fact that it came and went so quickly, I liked that. That's a neat experience that I had there. But that slamming door in that ER area, that kind of shook me up, because that was probably one of really heard a slamming door like that. And I turned around, Dog and I turned around, and all the doors are still wide open. We're like, okay, but none of the cameras I guess none of the cameras caught it. So,
which is the norm for paranormal investigating.
Yeah.
You'll be looking in this direction with the camera, and stuff will happen over here, and by the time you get there, it's gone. So I mean, that's the norm.
It is. But the rest of my stories are mostly, are Waverly Hills. I had them all divided up. So I have some Waverly Hills stories.
Okay.
First of all, that was a neat journey. And I was really, Shannon had called me and said, hey, do you want to go? And I'm like, are you kidding? So the drive up there was really fun. I remember a lot of laughter, and we were exhausted, but the drive up there was really fun. I thought the place was amazing. I loved the history. I thought it was amazing. One of the very first experiences that I did have at Waverly was on a rotation where you put me with Chris and Erlene. And we were, I couldn't tell you where we were, but we had 3 K2s. Each of us had a K2, and Chris and I's K2 was blinking like windshield wipers, green to the red, green to the red, green to the red. Well, I had discovered it, and I'm like, hey, check this out. And then I would move away, and it would be gone. Put it back. And then Chris came over with his. He's like, let's see. And he puts his by mine, and they start doing it. But then Erlene gets her K2 out and it won't do anything. And then as soon as Chris and I are like going like windshield wipers, and then it stops. And Chris and I are like, cool. And we could never hit it again. All around there, nothing ever again within that few feet of area where we found it. I thought that was really neat. I thought that was, I know that a lot of people, there's some pros and cons to the K2. I think it's an important tool that you can use. And I thought that was really neat evidence, because how did that happen? And Arlene's K2 wouldn't pick anything up. Even if when she put hers right next to ours, hers wasn't reading at all, but ours was. So I thought that was a really unique experience. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get more in 502. I was really excited to get into 502, but we didn't get any evidence at all in 502. And I wanted to go up to the top where the children were, because there's a lot of reports of the children up on the top. But oh my gosh, I know you remember when we were there, it was so windy. I couldn't even stand up there for just 10 minutes. I was like, I'm freezing. I'm shivering. I can't think in this environment. And so I was really disappointed that we didn't get an opportunity to, I think it rained even a little bit that night, didn't it?
I'm not sure about the rain. I do remember the amount of wind was causing a lot of questions, at least on my part, as to whether or not the things that we thought we were seeing, were actually happening.
Yes.
Which is why a lot of that evidence had to be thrown away. We kept some, but a lot of it, I was like, these shadows look like they're being caused by, by this, and it's windy, everything's moving. It would make perfect sense. So, but yes, I remember not being able to do a lot of investigating because of the weather in certain areas. I'm going to say certain areas were not covered as well as they could have been because of that.
It was very windy. I do remember it being very, very windy. But there wasn't a lot of wind in the death tunnel. And that was an interesting place. And it was me and Billy, and I don't remember who the female was. I don't remember who you put us with, but I know it was Billy and I and another female. And we went past the morgue. And I remember, because I always think morgues might be really interesting to spend a lot of time investigating, because death is very new there,
Yeah,
and I remember looking in that morgue with my flashlight, and we stood there for a minute, and none of those doors were open. I remember. But on the way back from the death tunnel, we looked in the morgue again, and there was a door open. And even Billy said, I think that all those doors were closed.
Right.
We didn't put a camera in there to document that, and we should have. We should have gone in there, even for just a minute, with our camera to document that all the doors were closed. But Billy did find out that to open the door, or to close it, actually, because Billy went over there to close it, and it would scrape up against the concrete, and it was really hard to shut.
Right.
And I thought we would have heard that, because the way you separate the teams, we were really far apart from each other. So there wouldn't have been any other team in there if we were going to go, because the morgue you have to pass the morgue to get to the death tunnel.
Right.
And Billy was pushing on it, and it was just scraping on the concrete. And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because we would have heard that.
Right. And there was a lot of echo when you were in the tunnel. There was. Yes. So that's something that would have carried throughout the tunnel, that somebody would have heard and gone towards to figure out how the noise was.
That is one of those neat experiences that's really, I guess you could chalk that up to a personal experience, because we have no evidence, but I still maintain that when I looked in there, those doors were shut. So coming back, we did spend some time in there, because we were in there investigating, well, how can you open this door and all of that. But the death tunnel itself, I didn't go down there. Billy went down there. God love him. He went down there all by himself without a flashlight. I'm like, I'm not worthy. Because I wasn't going to do it. But the acoustics in that thing, I can see where people think that they hear a lot of really creepy things because the acoustics is really odd. Because Billy would say, as he was walking down, he would hear things, and then he would get down there, and then we would hear things up at the top, and we're like, is that coming from him walking, or is it really behind us? Or I just think the acoustics are really odd in that thing.
Right.
But yeah, it had an interesting vibe to it, to be sure. You could feel the energy there. And I think, I don't know what causes it. I know that death surrounds that place. I mean, over the years, there have been so many tragic deaths there, but it did have a weird vibe to it, to be sure. But I didn't go down there.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. We were attacked by some bats on the way, which I thought was, look, now that is something that scared me because I wasn't expecting that. And they go whooping over our heads. And so that was interesting. The bat situation was interesting. And there's that big, like it's a big ballroom where those like fake coffins were. That was kind of on the way to the death tunnel. Now, I thought that room had a very interesting feel to it. You could almost, it was like when I was in that cell in the kitchen of Yorktown. You could just feel the energy kind of moving in a circle. I liked that room a lot. We spent some time in there investigating. I liked that room a lot.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. I had to think about it, but I remember now. The way it was set up, I think they had like a podium in there also, like for someone to speak. I think they might have done like an event there in the past or something and just left all that stuff there. But yeah, I remember I actually did not like the vibes in that room.
Really? Why?
I was just not a pleasant feeling that I was getting to the point where I wanted to be there to investigate. I actually believe that I purposely put myself elsewhere to avoid anything because, you know, when I first walked into Waverly, I always get the sensation of the deaths. I pick up on the physical sensations, the physical, you know, what they went through. And both me and my sister were there and we're both sensitive. So we were both feeling it. And that lasted a good hour until it finally calmed down enough for us to actually investigate. But that was one of those areas that we were picking up those physical sensations from there. And it didn't feel like the rest of the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And we both were like, no, I can't do this. If I go in here, that's going to ruin the entire investigation for me for the rest of the evening.
Right.
So it's kind of neat. I think that you're actually drawn to those kind of areas because both of the areas that you spoke of were like that. They had that same vibe to it that I try to stay away from.
Right. I think that, well, now we had the same experience with the door, you know, the infamous door that kept moving.
Right.
I was up there with Dog and Shannon, and I'm not sure who else. And we got the door was moving for us too. So, and that was the door that Wayne was talking about, the door just moving. And we did investigate the you know what out of that room. There was no windows in there. It's like a bathroom or something on the other side of that door. There are no windows to cause a draft to move that door. And so we did see that. That was really neat to see that door before my very eyes. And Shannon had the REM pod at that time, and the REM pod was getting hits too. So I liked that. I thought that door moving like that was really neat. I saw that with my own eyes, and that was a neat experience.
Yeah, experience that Wayne had in a previous video,
Yes.
where I believe, did you guys ask it to close or open?
I think Shannon was. I was just in awe that it was moving like that.
Okay.
But I think Shannon was, because I don't know if you've noticed, but Shannon is the commander. Shannon says she wants a light to come on, and it does.
Right.
And Shannon says, Shadow, move up against the wall, and it does. So, you know, I mean, she's like the spirit commander of the team. So Shannon says, door, close. And it closes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good. I'm gonna have to get her a T-shirt that says "Spirit Commander."
Spirit Commander. So, so I think that really the last story I have about Waverly Hills is the story of how, well, Anna was with us. It was me, Shannon, and Anna, and it was James and Wayne, I think, and they scared the crap out of us, and they didn't mean to. They didn't do it on purpose. We didn't know that they were down that hall, and they came down that hall and they were shutting doors. And I swear, you can ask Anna, because I think Anna was going to run with me. I was going to run. And then I wound up hovering behind Shannon. And so Shannon still gives me grief about that to this day. And I always have to tell Shannon will say something like, you ran at Waverly Hills. And I said, I did not. I hid behind you, but I did. And the reason why I like this story is because I think it's a prime example as an investigator of how your fight or flight can really kick in. And I literally was going to run, and Anna was right with, we're both like, peace out, man, we're out. And I was able, and I don't know how really, because the fight or flight instinct is so primal, but I did not run. I took maybe a step or two, and then I turned back around and I went back, and I did kind of cower behind Shannon. But that, as an investigator, that was really interesting, because a lot of times you don't get to experience that fight or flight like that in those situations, or in any situation. It's just react. You know, the fight or flight is just react.
Right.
But looking back on it, it was almost like it was in slow motion. It was like we heard this bam, and it's from somewhere down this dark hall, and we hear this bam, and then Anna and I are like, and then we're like, nope, so we both kind of stopped ourselves, and I thought it was interesting. And within those few, like 15 seconds, then out from the depths of the dark hall comes James and Wayne, and we're all just like, oh my God. And my heart is still like, and we're all just laughing. I will never forget that. And I remember James saying, I'm sorry, we didn't know y'all were here. And Shannon's like, we didn't know y'all were down there either. But it was interesting, like I said, because as an investigator, a lot of times you don't know how you're going to react when that fight or flight kicks in. Right. And honestly, now I know how I would react. And I'm actually proud of myself, because I stopped myself from running, which is such a gut instinct, to want to get out of there. So mm-hmm. I'm proud of myself. Yeah.
Well, we're proud of you too, because, I always say, I try to keep from the areas that I feel like there may be negative stuff, because I have been affected by these things before in the past. Now, I'm not talking about something scaring me to the point where I'm going to go running and smack myself into a wall, but the actual, I always end up with an attachment or bringing something home with me that will affect me over the course of a week, and so I have been in those situations, where there's another teammate that I didn't know about, coming down the stairway or something, and they're trying to be quiet so as not to affect my investigation. But at the same time, they don't realize I'm seeing like this movement going on over there, and I really do want to run. But I just sit there and like, hello. Hello. Right. Yeah, but you're right. We don't know how we're going to react in those situations. But you've been an asset, every time that you've gone, you have stuck through whoever I've put you with, and whatever corner I stick you in the dark, and that's great. That's great, because people all the time say, I want to try this. I want to do this. Some people go into it with an open mind, and they're great, like you have been with us. And then there are those who you tell them, okay, well, I'm going to want you to go, into this hall with this person, and you're just going to stay there. And they start to freak out almost immediately. Like they didn't realize what they're getting into. you know? And then all of a sudden it's like, no, 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 I changed my mind. So we always have to be careful as to who we, take on these or invite, and, but we've had so much fun with you. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you the experiences that I've had. It's been such a pleasure. And without being too corny, it's really been an honor because you guys have such a great reputation and you work so hard for the evidence and just to get out there. And I'm so thankful for the opportunities that you've given me to investigate with you guys. And I do have a lot of memories that will last a lifetime. Maybe more soon.
Right. So hopefully, in the future when we have more things, more investigations and stuff like that, I know that we can count on you to be there because you have been there in the past.
Thank you so much.
And if any of you came to our event, Sarah was actually one of the volunteers at our event this year. And so I'm hoping you'll be there again for next year.
Absolutely.
As a volunteer. Yeah. So if anybody's watching this, when you see her again in person, you're welcome to ask her any questions about these places and these experiences that she had. I'm sure she'll love to talk about them.
Yeah. I talk about them all the time with my friends at work. They think I'm crazy, but interestingly enough, they're always wanting to talk to me about stuff. So maybe they don't think I'm as crazy as I think they think I am, but they're always asking me. And Hazel, now that they know that I'm an investigator, because word's gotten out, one of them is having activity at her house. And she came to me and she's like, can we go have coffee for lunch? I need to talk to you. And sure enough, she's got some activity at her house. So I'm like, really? So yeah, word gets around and then everybody wants to talk to you, but I do love it. It is, it's a hobby of mine. It's a passion of mine and I love it. And thanks for letting me tag along.
No problem. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. I'm sure this is going to be a popular video just because the stories are great. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you
so much, Sarah. And you have a great evening.
I will. Bye.
Bye.